All right, BOMAC Talk, BOMAC Talk. BOMAC Talk is a BOMAC multimedia discussion hosted by Urbanetectonics LLC. These discussions align with Urbanetectonics LLC's vision and mission. And just to reiterate, so you know where we're coming from, the firm's vision or plans long term are to build the best frameworks, centralized frameworks, centralized constructs that enhance economic hubs and support business ecosystems. Our mission, the firm's mission, or our calling, is to conserve business constructs and to preserve business owners, managers, and administrators through the implementation of quality management systems. BOMAC Talk is a dynamic platform for professionals, innovators, and thought leaders to explore the intersection of technology and business operations. We focus on helping organizations navigate digital transformation, project management, and long-term sustainability. We dive into system integration, the 10 core assessment and service, and encourage businesses to take it annually or quarterly to audit their health and delegate effectively. We take it, we use our own product. Right now, we're working on Core 5, Core 6, Core 5, which is sales, marketing, and public relations, Core 6, which is multimedia, Core 8 and 9, which is technology and asset management, which includes financial management tools. And so you'll see a lot of that in our feed this year, right? So our philosophy and the way the format is informal, casual discussion. We're just talking it out with some raw insights, lessons learned in the trenches. We don't rely just on that gut feel alone. We use AI and systematic empirical data to stress test these personal experiences. And this allows us to move past some anecdotal bias and provide you with high integrity, data backed solutions, right? So we believe AI is revolutionizing knowledge management. And so we're shifting. Our goal is to help to bridge the gap between human intuition and objective, repeatable measurements, ensuring business transformation is built on foundations that are sustainable, facts, and not just our neat little stories, right? So, who should join? Our target market is owners, managers, administrators, um, consultants who are looking to simplify organizational complexity and optimize their workflows, right? So, you can check us out, YouTube, Urbanetectonics YouTube page. That's URBAN. Don't forget the Tectonics. You can put that in the search engine on YouTube, or you can just put it in Google and it'll take you to our main website. The main website is the hub for all things Urbanetectonics LLC. So where all else fails, you can start there, right? So I am Tammy. I'm a managing member at Urbanetectonics LLC. I have over 3 decades leading in high pressure, male dominated arenas from architecture, engineering, construction, facilities, education, technology to ministry. And I built a reputation for being rough around the edges, but fiercely effective. I'm an anti-debt, fully bootstrapped operator who lives by one mantra: every project must pay for itself. So, as a seasoned project manager of different types of work and project teams, I know what it takes to build valuable IP, invest in others, and dominate fast paced industries while often being the only female and only woman of color in the room. It still happens. I don't just speak with confidence, I lead with it. All that is built on deep roots and intentional work towards wellness. Still working on me, staying in the community and building my faith. Yeah, so this week, uh, lots going on in industry in the upcoming weeks. Urbanetectonics LLC acknowledge and celebrate all the administrators those who are administrators by profession or by role. So if you are superintendent of a school or one of our municipalities, one of our school districts, or one of our universities, you are a administrator. Or if you're in a public agency, a nonprofit, you are a administrator. And so we celebrate you just by your role or trade, industry, or by profession. If you are administrative assistant, or you are in some capacity um, a administrating, we celebrate you. This is your week. Administrators, I think the day was actually on Wednesday, but this is we're getting in on the tail end of that week. So Urbanetectonics acknowledge and we celebrate all our administrator client base, potential clients, and those out there managing work on behalf of a group or a business of interest, right? So um, we celebrate you. We celebrate you. Okay. And then BOMAQ Construction, our construction management division, we are celebrating with the trades. It's also National Work Zone Awareness Week. So this is very important as our infrastructure, lots of infrastructure contracts are coming on board. And so you're going to see a lot of orange cones, going to see a lot of detours, those long detours. Ugh, gotta love it, right? So stay aware. You got to be aware because we want our boots on the ground to be safe. You know, I mean, getting hit by a car, equipment, any of those types of things. So when you're in the woke zone, I know it's tedious. The speed limit goes down, the pace is slower, all those types of things. It's frustrating when you're trying to get from one point A to point B. Hey, go to AAA, go to MapQuest, find different routes and stuff like that if you need to be there a certain time, but keep our workers safe, boots on the ground. So National Work Zone Awareness Week is all about being aware of the signage and of the symbols and of the processes that you'll be stepped through when you are in a work zone, right? So um, uh, that will be going on this week, I think, through the weekend. And so we are celebrating with our construction family industries on that. And then 412 Investments, our business management division, that now facilitates our licensee business programs. We celebrate with our business owners. Coming up next week, there'll be National Small Business Week 2026. There'll be a conference and I think a short 3-day conference in celebration of that. We have uh, uh, been a attendee. We're a regular attendee of that conference. We have even mentored as a certified mentor businesses during the conference. And so have become aware and a regular attendee to those events during National Small Business Week. So you're a business owner, we celebrate you. Um, there will be lots of activities, possibly through that week and through that weekend. And we encourage you to partake in those programs, right? So uh, next couple weeks, lots of celebrations in industry and within the context of the target market owners, managers, administrators to which we serve. So um, we celebrate you. We celebrate you, right? So we are continuing to part two of a kind of three framework a discussion uh, on creative leadership, um, content creation, and then the authority in the age of AI, right? So this episode um, uh, is, let me see here. This episode, we were supposed to, um, there was some uh, things we needed to finish up on, but I think we were able to do that. Um, um, in this in this one. So, um, this episode is for creative directors, consultants, agency leads, independent thought leaders who are um, staring down the most disorienting professional shift of the decade. The moment AI arrived in the creative room and nobody told them how to stay in charge, right? So we're not here to debate whether AI belongs in the creative process. That debate is over. AI is in the room. The question now is who's running the meeting. In this episode, we argue that the leaders who will win, not just survive, but genuinely thrive, are the ones who understand a fundamental reframe, right? And so that's the framework we've been trying to create. AI is not a replacement, not a shortcut, and not a threat. It is a co-architect. And your job is to become a better architect. We covered the philosophy, the process, the politics, and the practical workflows. By the end, you'll have a clear model for how to run a hybrid creative team, how to write briefs that make AI output actually useful, how to stress test strategy using LLMs as sparring partners, and how to maintain the irreplaceable thing that no model can generate: your taste, your voice, and your creative soul. Yes. So, what we covered just briefly: the architecture of creativity, shifting from maker to editor in chief. Second point, co-piloting versus outsourcing, the crucial distinction that changes everything. We're going to talk the AI briefing protocol, how to write for AI so it can't give you garbage, right? Logic stress test. We're going to logic stress testing using LLMs as a strategic sparring partner. The ethics and taste, auditing for machine hallucinations and creative flatness. Creation as authority, why the best creative leaders are curators, not producers. We talked a little bit about that last session. And then that so what layer, turning AI synthesis into human only insight, right? So what? Yeah, what that layer is about, right? So, um, okay, so let me paint you a picture. It's 9 a.m. on Monday. You open up your laptop, you have a brief from a client that would have taken your team 3 days to respond to with the first concept, right? It's a complex rebrand, new positioning, new messaging, architecture, new visual language, and you have a week. A year ago, that's a stressful week. Today, you could have a first draft of every single deliverable: the positioning statement, the messaging pillars, the mood board concepts, the copy variations. You could have all that by noon, not because you work faster, because you have a co-architect. And here's what nobody is talking about. That's not actually the hard part anymore. The hard part, the part that will separate good creative leaders from great ones for the next decade, is what you do after noon. It's the judgment calls, the yes but sharper. This is technically correct and completely wrong. The edit that takes a competent AI draft and turns it into work that genuinely moves people, right? So that's where we're here to talk about today. I'm Tammy, and this is we're talking that AI edge, right? And so in April 2025, when AI tools started genuinely entering my creative workflow or the firm's creative workflow, right? Um, the first instinct wasn't resistance. We weren't afraid of losing work. We had built our brand identity using stock photos, stock video, and other easily made tools that helped us communicate with clarity our intent. We instinctively chose good things with taste that aligned with our intent. With AI, suddenly there was this tool that could produce something, right? It could do it better than stock images, stock photos, combinations of stock and in-house recorded videos, studio related talent, right? So we can get talent, don't have to worry about lighting and setting and clothing and all those types of things, right? That could better communicate with greater clarity our intent. So we loved it, still love it, right? And so the uncanny valley of creativity is having the opposite reaction. It's to feel threatened by what you make with AI. That is the uncomfortable place that needs a reframe that will change everything. And the reframe is this: comparing AI output to to our own individual output um, is not the same kind of thing, right? So we talked about that before. AI, we're not creating at the pace of AI. AI is creating at the pace of other AI. And we're like, you know, we have our own uh, uh, pace. We got to find our pace within that, right? And so that's what we're exploring. You know, where should we be in the midst of that, considering that it's not the same thing. Our output is not the same as AI output. That's the whole point, right? So, um, however, my output, the thing with real value, starts where AI draft will end, right? So the AI draft um, is the beginning to where real value starts, right? So that reframe is the whole thesis of today's episode. And let's talk it out. Let's both Mac talk it out, right? So the title of the segment is the architecture of creativity, and I want to earn that metaphor before we go further because I think the word architect is I am my undergrad is in architecture, and so that word is has been um, coined within the profession to be used only by licensed architects within that profession. However, when we start to talk about infrastructure, technology infrastructures, it has gone mainstream. The word has gone mainstream. And as we are building infrastructures within technology spaces and digital spaces, the word has been coined in other industries as well. So, and that's how we're using the word. So, uh, but it's a good mental model, and it's one that I can relate to very well. And so uh, it's the most useful mental model for what creative leadership looks like when AI is in the process, right? And so think about what an architect does. Um, they don't actually lay the bricks, they don't mix the concrete, they define the structural logic, the load bearing decisions, the spatial relationships, the constraints that make the building not just beautiful, but sound, right? So we learned, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, went through the calculations, how they generate all the calculations, structural, civil, um, uh, all of the sub-consultants that work with uh, the architect, we learn what they do, but in profession, we don't actually do it. They do all in their response. They do all the calculations and contribute all of that work and are responsible for that work, right? And so um, they actually lead a team of those sub-consultants or specialists who execute within that architecture that has been laid out, right? So the architect's value is not in how fast they can work, it's in the quality of their design decisions and their ability to be able to identify when all the working parts aren't working together, when something is misaligned, right? And so the analogy breaks down in exactly an interesting place, right? Because in traditional creative work, the creative director was laying some of the bricks, right? Today, there's not a lot of folks like Frank Lloyd Wright who did everything, you know, did the master builders actually did lay bricks and they did all their own calculations, all those types of things, right? So that's not true on today. So, uh, but in traditional creative work, the creative director was laying some of the bricks. The best creative directors usually have craft and some of the technology degrees, AET. When I originally came into the industry, architecture, engineering, technology, it was about laying bricks and then coming back to draw and all those types of things. So yeah, the best creative directors usually have craft. They can write, they can design, they can direct. And I would say from the ground up, uh, that trades are coming back into dominance, right? So, but that's how they built credibility, and now we're asking them to step further back to be more purely architectural, which is a skill shift, not just a mindset shift, right? And so, this is we're BOMAQ talking it out. This is up to debate, so I'm sure um, uh, there'll be some challenges to that thought process, right? But in any case, that's our position. That we're taking that position for this particular talk, right? So it is, and I think it's the worth naming that the shift actually requires um, uh, in practice, because be more strategic is advice that sounds good. Be more strategic is advice that sounds good and means nothing. Let's get specific, right? So the editor in chief model, which is how I think about the modern creative director role, has four core behaviors. First, you set the creative constraints before any work begins. Not the brief in the traditional sense, but the architectural constraints, the conceptually, the load-bearing walls. We'll dig into, what this look like in a minute. Second, you evaluate first drafts for strategic alignment, not craft. Craft can be iterated, strategy can't. If the AI or a team member produces something technically polished but is strategically off, no amount of polishes will fix it. So that's your call to make, right? So, and then thirdly, you identify the delta, what's missing between the first draft and the final vision. This is pure pure judgment, pattern recognition built from years of knowing what works, or exploring by research and development that knew uh, what's working now, what worked then, and then transitioning to something that that's working now. And then fourthly, you protect the brand of the soul, the protect the brand, the soul of the brand, brand soul of the brand, right? So you're the one who knows and can articulate what this brand would never do, what this voice would never sound like. That negative space is as important as the positive brief, right? So other management consulting firms, because of our background, our experience, and some of the perspectives that we have, we are, I guess, brand soul or the soul of our brand is very, very much receptive to this analogy, right? And so, um, in any case, I love that last one, the brand soul as negative space, because I think one of the most common failure modes with AI assisted creative work is that the output is fine, it's competent, no obvious errors, it but it has no soul. It's missing that thing that made the brand distinctive in the first place. And the reason is usually that nobody told AI or the team what not to do. The constraints were all positive: be bold, be warm, be innovative. And nobody said, never use corporate jargon. We never sound like we're performing empathy. We never sacrifice clarity for the cleverness, right? And so these are distinct differences that you can make, right? And so this is actually a beautiful way to think about creative leadership, where your role is to be the person who can articulate what your brand would never do, right? And so we talked about this before when it comes to articulating clarity. AI has really actually helped us in a very strong way to be able to do that. And so um, to articulate the brand intent, but also to articulate what the brand will never do. There's some things we just will never do. And that's by capacity of the managing members in our vision and our mission, right? And so because AI will go wherever the path of least resistance leads, if you don't install those load-bearing walls, it will wander, right? It will wander, right? So um, let's get into the right mental model. So with all that said, creative co-piloting, co-piloting, co-pilot, a creative co-pilot, the right mental model. Um, we're introducing this term here. Um, and I think it does more useful work than any other framing we've encountered, right? So being a creative co-pilot, not AI as a tool, not AI as a team member, but a co-pilot. If you know anything about aviation, which you know that the co-pilot is extraordinarily capable, trained, competent, and can fly the plane. But the pilot is in command. The pilot has judgment, authority, and responsibility. And critically, the best pilots are not the ones who refuse to use autopilot. They're the ones who know exactly when to engage it, when to override it, and when it's not capable of handling, and what it's not capable of handling, right? So judgment calls. So in practice, and so we kind of change from our architecture analogy to now pilots, aviation. Stay with me, stay with me, stay with me. Trying to make it plain, try to make it plain and relatable. So uh, in practice, what does a creative co-pilot look like? Um, let's walk through a real workflow. um, let's BOMAQ talk it out, walk through this real workflow. So say I'm developing visual concepts for a brand campaign. That's something that we do. The old process, um, I brief a designer or art director. They produce 3 to 5 layouts, designs, or concepts. We review, we iterate. That cycle takes days. And the review sessions are often inefficient because we're reacting to polished looking work, and it's hard to separate, I don't love this execution, from this strategic direction is just all wrong. So, new process with co-piloting, new process with this co-pilot mental model. I use generative image tools to produce rapid mood board concepts, 20, 30 variations in a couple of hours. They're rough, they're not final, but they're enough to make strategic calls. Does this feel premium or accessible? Does this feel modern or timeless? Does this feel like us? Those calls happen in the morning. Then I brief the human designer or human capital, human talent, whichever that may be, the team with three directions, clear directions that pass the strategic filter plus all the mood board references, right? And so they're not starting from zero, they're starting from pre-validated direction. And this is so applicable to our AI tech builds, right? So the ability to use AI to produce, modify, and update apps, SaaS products, software, hardware, MVPs, cuts costs and saves time. You can examine product market fit, go to market fit, product channel fit, channel model market fit, problem solution fit, and value market fit, right? I'm having a fit, right? And so a fit of fun because these examinations can be done more quickly. These fits are interconnected and evolve, meaning they must constantly be reevaluated as the business scales. And now you're able to do that much faster. Usually you do that analysis, you don't get it right, it's going to cost you money because you to update the MVP for any one of those fits, right? And so uh that's cost save, time save, right? So the feedback loop between client and creator gets dramatically shorter. And because you're not showing clients polished work and waiting for feedback that requires a week of revisions, you're showing them directional options quickly, getting the strategic alignment up front, and then investing the craft time and direction you know is right, right? So this is applicable for in-house as well as applicable for client use. And this is where I push back on people who say AI is killing creative quality. Used correctly, it's doing the opposite. It's protecting craft time because you're not spending your designer's best hours. You're protecting that genius. We talk about protecting that genius, had to take the time off, had to protect my genius, had to protect your infrastructure, right, as an owner. So yeah, you're protecting that craft time because you're not spending your designer's best hours on directions that were never going to work, frustrating them. And so they can't do their best work, right? So you're spending them uh, uh, conserving them, preserving the infrastructure. As you move into AI, you're preserving the constructs in the infrastructure, and then conserving um, your talent and their genius. So you're they're spending their time on the one direction that has already been validated, right? And so they could put their best foot forward, their best work towards that. The other thing of this mental model that the of being co-pilot unlocks is uh, what I kind of discussed is that rapid prototyping loop. You know, that rapid prototyping loop when you're creating MVPs, but also for messaging. Instead of spending 2 weeks developing in our example, developing a positioning statement, presenting it, getting told it's not quite right and starting over, you can prototype 15 positioning angles in a session, react to them live with the client, and arrive at something genuinely collaborative. The AI makes the iteration cheap enough that you can afford to explore, right? So, I mean, pause and think about your last major creative project. Where in that process did you spend the most time? Now ask, which of those time-heavy steps produced the most strategic value, and which were you spending time on simply because iteration was expensive? And it's true, iteration is expensive every time you have to go into the website and revise it, every time you have to go into software and revise it or revise a piece of hardware, every revision costs money. Every mistake you have to correct, every thing that's off. So being able to work this through uh, uh, with the you know work this through with AI is saving time, saving money, right? So okay, so next segment, the AI briefing protocol, right? And so architectural constraints, teaching AI the blueprint. So we talked about this a little bit previously, having that base document, that foundational document, which was easy for us to transition into AI because we are in the practice of creating these documents that now have become very valuable as AI is moving into industry, right? And so the operational core of this episode is right here. So you're in operations. Lean in, because everything we talked about so far, the co-pilot model, the editor-in-chief role, the rapid prototyping loop, all of it collapses if you don't know how to brief AI well, and most people don't, right? So the default way people use AI is what, we call ask and receive. You type a prompt, the AI gives you something, you react to it, you prompt again. They have thumbs up, thumbs down. Was it good? Was it bad? Should we do it over? And usually by the time you get it right, you used your limit because it just keeps doing stuff like, oh, okay, maybe I'll switch this, maybe I'll switch that, right? And so you keep prompting again, you direct again, and it's tedious to do it that way. You're essentially playing this ping pong with no strategy, just reacting to whatever the tool sends back to you. And so the better model, the one that actually makes AI useful, at a professional level is what we call giving it the architectural constraints, and we're going to use those analogies because that's our industry background. So instead of asking the AI to produce something and seeing what arrives, you install this blueprint first. You give the AI the structural logic of the outcome before it produces a single word or image, and that is what those foundational documents we talked about in last two episodes have been for us. Um, they may not, most of those are 10 pages or more because we get a little long-winded and those types of things. But that type of detail actually makes it more customized to us so that it can't even be duplicated, even when folks screenshot it and they put it into AI because it doesn't have this structural logic of the foundational document that we utilize. It still comes out different. They can use the exact, go in there and screenshot everything, and then say, we want it to look, exactly like this. And because AI doesn't have the structural logic to how we actually built it, the outcome is still going to be different. Uh, it will produce something, an image or whatever that is. Whatever the outcome is supposed to be, it will be different than um, uh, how the image we received. Right. So can we make this concrete? What does the architectural constraints brief actually include, versus a regular prompt, right? So what's the difference? Let's try to break it down. Like for us, like I said, that it's really a brief. It's most of the time it is not just a couple paragraphs, it's a document. And that has worked from the moment we started with AI, April of 2025. Having those documents have separated, it has been our competitive edge, because they are so detailed and so aligned, and so well thought out, that it has really created this this competitive edge and made a clear differentiation for us within the market, right? So um, that's the difference with us. We're going to talk about the difference overall. So let's kind of break it down. A standard creative brief for AI might say, write 3 variations of a brand positioning statement for a B2B SaaS company in the project management space, targeting mid-market teams. That's applicable. We do that. That's a good prompt for us. That's totally reasonable prompt. It will produce totally reasonable output. Generic, competent, probably forgettable, but it could do it, right? And so an architectural constraints brief starts differently. It has components, right? So say uh, the brief may have 6 components. Um, and let's kind of walk through what those 6 components might be, right? Component 1, the strategic frame. This is the why now, what business problem this creative, what problem is being solved. Not the category description, but the specific tension. This brand exists in a crowded space where every competitor claims to simplify work. Our differentiation is that we're the only platform built specifically for distributed teams who operate across time zones. The positioning must make that specific feel, that specific detail feel like a feature, not a limitation, right? So something that is uh, specific um, to your organization, your business, and to your particular problem and solution, right? So that's component 1, the strategic frame. Component 2, the audience's interior monologue. So what is your audience actually thinking, feeling, saying to themselves that this creative needs to speak to? What's your demographic? For us, that's our target market: owners, managers, administrators, in particular, owners, managers, administrators, in particular industry. Um, uh, as we kind of pointed out before, different ones celebrate different things, different um, concerns, context, and so they would have different demographics, have different interior monologues. Example, a buyer is a team lead who is exhausted from managing a team they barely see in person, right? They're using Zoom and they feel like they're failing at leadership because the tools that they have weren't designed for the tools that they are using aren't designed for their reality. And now they're looking for a project management tool. They're looking for proof that someone understands their problem, right? So that's the target market for that particular solution. Then component 3 would be tone architecture, not just tone, warm and professional, but tone architecture. What does this brand sound like? What does it explicitly not sound like? And what are 3 examples from outside the category that demonstrate the target register, right? And so this has also worked well for us in terms of having videos and having, our slide shares and those stuff, because we can actually pull in those links and say, this is a video or this is a transcript that kind of speaks to where we want to go with this. And this is so we don't have to keep writing this over. And also, as I indicated in the previous um, sessions, we can do it without an agent having to scale up to uh, subscriptions that would require an agent. And so we're able to have that repetitive nature within that discussion by way of having these documents and inputting those documents every time. So this is where, those where you reference other brands. Well, this is saying other brands, but we would reference our brands, our writers, our publications, and anything that helps AI triangulate the desired voice, right? And so, um, if it will pull other brands, writers, and publications and stuff like that. And that's where you get that blandness, that generality that's out there somewhere. By having it reference our particular video, brand videos, our documents, things that we have written that is speaking with clarity, even things that AI has helped us to write and find clarity, to duplicate that, to have that out there in duplication. Um, and then those other publications, we have the Power Next Brief, we have our quarterly reports, we have our annual reports, those types of things are lay out uh, our thought process in specific detail. And that helps AI hone in on our desired voice or the voice that we're putting out there so we can correct it. There are some things that we had to correct. We're like, oh, okay, is that what that's saying? Oh, that's not what we meant. That's not the intent. So we have to put out other publications and other writings and correct that brand. And so you'll see some of that happening as well. So component four, that's component three. Component four is the counter logic constraint. This is the most powerful and underused component. You explicitly you you tell AI what not to do and why. Example, this positioning must not lean into simplicity or ease of use language. Every competitor owns their words and we will be invisible if we use them. It must not sound aspirational or vision heavy. Our buyers are pragmatic and respond to um, uh, specifics over inspiration. And it must not use the word seamless under any circumstances. Things like that. Some of the words that are typically used by AI, and you may hear us saying those words, and it's fine as well as long as the intent of what we're saying is getting across, right? So, um, component five, historical precedents. Give the AI examples of your best past work. And, four and five will, um, you're starting to differentiate. You're starting to differentiate, right? So not as templates to copy, but as collaboration, as a uh, calibration. Here are three positioning statements we've written that the client loves. Study the sentence structure, the level, the way we balance head and heart. Match this register. This is how you encode the creative voice into the brief, right? And so historical precedent, that's also worked really well with us to say, okay, yeah, this is something that we created. We won awards. We won with we won a contracts with this particular um, style with the content, some of the verbiage, but we want to revamp it. We want to revamp it for a particular another proposal that we may be seeking, and so we'll using the previous historical precedents will have revamp a draft for us so that we could get through the new proposal more quickly, right? So um, that component worked really well with us as well. Component six, the success criteria. How will you know if the output is right? Make it plain. A successful positioning statement will, number one, make a distributed team lead feel genuinely seen. Um, Include a specific claim rather than a generic aspiration. Three, be short enough to say out loud in under 10 seconds, define the judgment criteria in the brief. The AI can self-evaluate against them, right? So giving it one, two, three, what the um, positioning statement needs to look like, right? And so we've done this with our SaaS product. we say, hey, the outcome, it needs to X, Y, and Z. And this is when we know it has right. And then at the end of a particular plan outline, we'll say, did you make sure component six that you met these criteria, and it'll go through and analyze it again to make sure, right? So it's long and tedious. Yeah, it's long. It's tedious, but the output is going to give you a competitive edge and it's going to differentiate you from a regular prompt. The first prompt the output, the first prompt that we kind of discussed, right? So when you write a brief like this, the output quality difference is not marginal. It is in magnitude, right? It's just, it becomes your own. And because you've done the architectural thinking before the AI starts working, which is your role, now AI can build those load-bearing walls, and only you can decide where those walls go. And once you start making changes in that, even if someone does a screenshot of something like that, because they don't have those load-bearing walls, you start making changes, they can't follow you. They can't follow you. So when we talked about this, but the foundational document, so when we talk about the brand foundation document, um, uh, if we zoom out from the individual brief and talk about something that lives upstream of any single project, um, that brand foundation document, if the architectural constraints brief is how you set up a single session, the brand foundation is the thing that makes every session better over time, right? So these are one inside of the other. One is more like the business plan. Business plan has 5 plans within it. It has the sales, marketing, and PR plan. It has the financial plan. It has the management plan. It has the business and legal plan. It has am I missing anything? There's 5. Services and products plan. So within the business plan, there's 5 plans within that. And so you can take one of the plans out there, start working on it, but then it will affect every other plan uh, that's in the overall document. So you got that macro overall view to make sure that, like we indicated, um, with the analogy of the architect and all the sub-consultants, similar with the business plan, as you are working through one plan, it will impact all the other plans. And so your job as the owner, business owner, is to have that working document and to make sure that they are all working in integration of each other, that it works together seamlessly and that it makes sense. Um, uh, that all of the plans are working together into one business plan, right? Um, so here's the idea, the, coming back into this particular talk, that architectural constraints brief, the brand foundation, uh, within that, um, this is the idea. Most of us have a sophisticated understanding of the brands we work on that lives in our heads. So we know the client's voice, their history, their quirks, the directions they've already tried and rejected, the category cliches to avoid. That knowledge is our edge as a creative partner. Excuse me. But it's locked in our heads. And so that brand foundation is that knowledge management tool. It's that document. It's how you externalize that knowledge into a form that can be given to AI. We talked about this. If you follow BOMAQtalk, knowledge management we've always talked about standard operating procedures and having written documents within the process, within all of your internal processes, uh, because human talent, human capital, they move on. Sometimes they get sick. Some of those, something may happen, and you need to be able to have business continuity in a way that's not disruptive, even when your human capital, um, there's a misstep there in some way. And so this concept is also applicable to AI. That knowledge management tool, if you're not giving it to um, a, a human on your team, you're giving it to AI. And so that quality of output doesn't depend on who's running the prompt. And that was the whole idea in creating standard operating procedures, having process maps, charting different types of workflows. So there is go-to, a go-to document or a go-to resource, go-to tech, whichever, that can guide individuals through a process should some of your human capital, there be some kind of disruption within the organizational structure, that you're able to continue business. It's a business continuity practice, right? And so, same that same practice will be applicable as with AI. It has become this valuable tool. You need to get it on board, train it, and uh, you would train it in the same way. Well, you train it, you can use some of the same knowledge management tools to train it as well. So, um, uh, when we're talking about the brand foundation document, what could go in it? What can go in it? We can break it down. 6 sections. Brand belief. The one thing this brand genuinely believes about the world that drives everything it does. Not a mission statement, a belief. Second, voice DNA, the 3 to 5 descriptions that define the voice, plus an equal number of anti-descriptors, what the voice is not. Third, signature patterns, recurring structural language choices that make this brand recognizable, right? Fourth, the forbidden zone, topics, formats, phrases, and approaches that are off limits. Fifth, best of archive, your 3 to 5 best pieces of work for this brand, what made them work, and any kind of notes, annotations that go with that. 6, audience truth, specific, non-obvious insight about what this audience actually needs that the brand uniquely addresses, right? And so another document, we are big on these documents. This would be something that's in your business plans, your sales, marketing, public relations plan, um, uh, that you could get specific about, right? And then this document goes into every AI session for this brand. Every brief starts by giving the AI the brand foundation. And this brand foundation is different for each one of the divisions, right? So we have overall mission and vision for Urbanetectonics, but then each one of the divisions has its own brand identity. And so this brand foundation becomes your handshake with the machine. Here's how we, this is who we are before we start. Um, the secondary benefit that's easy to overlook is that the process of building this document itself um, is clarifying, you you know, any brand confusion. You know that this inconsistent, unfocused, creative work is not a creative problem. a creative problem. It's a definition problem. Nobody has actually agreed what the brand believes and what it sounds like, and so eh, you're kind of using AI to kind of do that. And you can't work through that with AI, but you have to find that's what you're doing so that you kind of get to a point where you actually have that brand foundation uh, being created. And once you have it, everything downstream kind of gets easier. Once you have these documents, it's, it's just easy peasy, right? AI assisted or not, because all the human capital that are working with you, now you can get them on board. Everybody being aligned, right? So um, for Urbanetectonics, Core 5, sales, marketing, PR, Core 6, multimedia, what we're working on, that's one of our in our service stack or 10 core service stack for the firm. Um, and that's our AI creative manifesto, right? That is unique, our edge and our how we differentiate ourselves within the management consulting industry. And so our um, assessments on our website become these kind of free guides to help you maintain your brand identity, integrity, um, uh, within and out of whether it's human led or AI led, right? And so you can kind of check that out at our website, www.urbanetek, the number 2.com, right? Check out Core 5, Core 6. Um, uh, then there's a division, BOMAC Multimedia, um, division um, in the managed services section of the website, and that you can check out as well. Right. So that is okay. So um, let's let's yeah. Okay. Let's take a small break. We're gonna take a small break, and then we're gonna come back with a couple. We're gonna talk logic stress testing and using AI as a strategic sparring partner. We're going to move into that. We have um, yeah, we have three other segments that we want to kind of get through on this Friday, and so we're going to chart through it. So going to take a small break. Going to come back. We will probably stop this segment here. This will be session 3, right? So when you come back, click on session 4, session 4. And that's be the continuation of this BOMAQ talk discussion. All right.